Hey, I want to ask you something. Not about your career, not about your income, not about what you've built or what your calendar looks like this week. I want to ask you about the last time you were fully present. Not physically in the room. Anyone can be in the room. I mean fully there. Mind clear, nothing being avoided, nothing being deferred, nothing being managed at a distance while your body's set somewhere else. If that took you a while to answer, this video's for you. If the honest answer is months, this video is urgent for you. And if you couldn't come up with an answer at all, then we need to talk about what's actually happening. Because most men aren't failing. They're decaying. And there is a difference, a significant one. That's exactly what we're getting into today. First, I'm going to show you what decay actually looks like in a man's daily life. Not the dramatic version, the quiet version. The one you've been normalizing so long, you stopped noticing it. Second, I'm going to show you why successful men are more vulnerable to this than struggling men. This one is counterintuitive and it matters because it means the things you've worked hardest to achieve may be the exact things accelerating the problem. And third, I'm going to give you 3 specific frameworks that I've used in 23 years of military service and in rebuilding men through Legion to interrupt decay before it becomes permanent. These are not mindset tips. These are not morning routines. They are actual conditions that have always separated men who rebuild from men who rot quietly while looking fine. If at any point you see yourself in what I'm describing, stay with it. That recognition is the first honest thing that's happened in a while. Don't look away from it. Let's start with what decay actually looks like. Failure is loud. It has a moment. The business collapses, the marriage ends. You get the call from the doctor. There is a before and after, and everyone around you can see exactly where the line is. Decay doesn't work like that. Decay is what happens when a capable man, a man with genuine strength, genuine intelligence, genuine potential, stops bringing force to his own life and starts managing appearances instead. He is still in the marriage, still running the business, still raising the kids, still showing up for the meetings, but he's not fully there. And everyone in his life can feel it, even if no one else says it. His wife stopped telling him about the hard things because she learned slowly, over months, over years, that he wouldn't engage. He'd listen, he'd nod, he'd offer something reasonable, and nothing would change. His team stopped bringing him the real problems because somewhere along the way, he became a man who managed tension instead of resolving it, who made decisions that kept the peace instead of decisions that moved the mission. His kids started going to their mother for everything that matters, not because he is not present, because presence without engagement is just furniture. Decay is socially invisible. That is what makes it so dangerous. Because no one pulls you aside and tells you. They just quietly adjust their expectations of you. They start working around you. And by the time you notice the distance, you've been paying the cost for years. So let me be specific. Because vague is comfortable and specific is useful. Symptom 1. You have a conversation you know you need to have with your wife, with a person on your team, with yourself. and you keep not having it. Not because you don't care, because caring would require change, and change requires energy you have been saving for a moment that never comes. Symptom 2. You negotiate with yourself every morning. I'll hit the gym tomorrow. I'll start that project Monday. I'll have that conversation when things calm down. The conditions are never right. That is not bad luck. That is a man who has quietly stopped holding himself to his own standard. And symptom 3. You get home, and the first thing you reach for is the phone. Not because there is something urgent on it, because it creates the appearance of purpose without the demand of presence. It keeps you busy inside your own head, where no one can require anything real from you. Symptom 4. In meetings, in rooms where you used to be the one who drove the conversation, you have started staying quiet. Not because you don't know the answer, because pushing back costs political capital you have decided isn't worth spending. You have started optimizing for comfort inside rooms where you used to lead. Symptom 5. Your confidence has started to feel performed. You say the right things, you project the right posture, but there is a gap between what you project and what you actually believe about yourself. And that gap has been growing, and you know it. Symptom 6. The things you used to care about, that used to drive you, that you used to pursue without being told, have gone quiet. Not gone, quiet. Like something turned the volume down on the part of you that wanted more, that demanded more, that refused to settle. And some part of you is relieved by the quiet, because the quiet is easier. And symptom 7, the one that is the hardest to admit. Somewhere in you, in a place you do not look at directly, is the awareness that you are not the version of yourself your family deserves right now. Not the worst version, not a bad man, just not the version you know you are capable of being. And instead of doing something about that, you get busier. You stay later. You find ways to be productive that keep you out of the rooms where you would have to show up fully. That is decay. Not dramatic, not visible, compounding daily. Here is the part that took me the longest to understand, and the part I most want you to hear. The men most at risk of this are not struggling men. They are not men who have hit bottom or men who are visibly falling apart. They are men who have already won. And here's why. When a man is under pressure, building something, providing something, fighting for something, he is engaged. The external demand forces presence, forces decision, forces him to access the version of himself that performs at the highest level. But the moment that pressure lifts, the moment you've hit the goal, made the money, earned the title, built the thing, the external force disappears. And what replaces it is comfort. Comfort is not reset. Comfort is not peace. Comfort, unchecked, unexamined, made the default condition of a man's life, is the anesthesia that makes decay painless. Until it isn't. I know this firsthand. After 23 years in the Navy, after combat operations, after making Master Chief in 17 years, after leading hundreds of sailors through some of the most demanding conditions the military produces, I left the uniform. And within months, without the external structure, without the mission, without the pressure that had defined every single day of my adult life, I started to drift. Not dramatically, not visibly. I still functioned, I still performed, but I had lost the thing that had been keeping me sharp, and I had not yet built anything to replace it. I was decaying, and I almost did not catch it. The question is not whether comfort is affecting you. It is. The question is how long you let it run before you do something about it. So, 3 frameworks. These are not theories. They come out of 23 years of leading men under pressure and out of everything I learned watching men rebuild through Legion. These are the distinctions that have actually moved the needle, not the ones that sounded good in a podcast. The first framework is the most important distinction I can offer you, because I think it completely changes the urgency of what we're talking about. Failure is recoverable. I know that sounds backwards, because failure is painful and visible and feels permanent when you're in it. But failure has a gift inside it that decay does not. Failure demands a response. It creates a before and after. It forces re-engagement. And men who fail spectacularly, who hit the bottom hard, often come back with more clarity and more force than men who never failed at all. Because the bottom gave them something to push off of. Decay does not give you that. Decay has no moment. It has no bottom. It just takes, slowly, quietly, a little more every month until one day you are a significantly diminished version of who you were, and you cannot name the moment it happened because there wasn't one. The man who fails and rebuilds, I have enormous respect for that man. He earned his clarity the hard way. The man who decays quietly while maintaining the performance of success, that is the man I am here to interrupt. Because I have watched that story end, and it does not end well. It ends in a marriage that empties out over years rather than breaking cleanly. It ends in children who grew up with a father who was present but absent. It ends with a man at 55 looking back at a decade of playing it safe and understanding clearly and too late what he traded for comfort. Regret doesn't scream. It just sits there quietly and tells you you knew and you still chose this. Failure is loud and survivable. Decay is silent, and if you let it run long enough, permanent. That is the distinction. That is why this is urgent. The second framework is about mechanism. Because decay is not random, and it's not inevitable. It requires 3 conditions. Every case I have seen in the military and business, and the men who came to Legion had all 3 present. And when men interrupted the decay, it was because they addressed it at least one of them. Condition 1, the absence of standards. Not rules, standards. Rules are imposed. Standards are chosen. Rules exist because someone enforces them from the outside. Standards exist because a man decides what he will and will not accept from himself and holds that line regardless of whether anyone is watching. When a man abandons his own standards, when good enough becomes acceptable, when the hard thing becomes optional, when he stops being his own highest demand, decay begins at the identity level because he stops trusting himself. And a man who doesn't trust himself does not lead. He manages, he maintains, he survives, but he does not lead. Condition 2, the absence of accountability. Men rot in isolation. This is not a metaphor. I watched it happen across 23 years of military service, and I have watched it happen in every program I've run since. When a man has no one in his life who will tell him the truth, not encourage him, not validate him, not offer him perspective, but tell him the truth, specifically and without softening it, he started managing his own narrative. He surrounds himself with people who affirm instead of challenge. He stops having the conversation that cost him comfort. He stops being tested. And without being tested, standards erode. And when standards erode, decay accelerates. Here's the data on this, and it's brutal. In 1990, the majority of men in America reported having 6 or more close friends. Today, that number is under 30%. More than half of American men report having no close friends at all. No one who knows them fully, no one they are accountable to. That's not a social problem. That is a leadership crisis. Because men without accountability do not maintain standards. Period. Condition 3, the absence of pressure. This is the one that's hardest to hear. Because every modern system is designed to eliminate it. Every app, every service, every feature of the environment you live in is optimized to reduce friction, remove hardship, and make discomfort as rare as possible. And while comfort has gone up, character formation has collapsed. Because men do not rise in comfort, they rise when something demands more of them than they think they have. When they are forced to confront the gap between who they are and who they need to be, and push through it rather than around it. The military understood this for centuries before it could articulate it scientifically. Boot camp is not designed to torture recruits. It is designed to strip away every false identity, every comfortable story, every untested assumption, and find out what is actually underneath. Because what is underneath is the only thing that can be built into something real. Standards, accountability, pressure. These are not optional components of a man's life. They are the operating conditions of a man who leads. Remove all 3, decay is inevitable. Restore all 3, rebuild becomes possible. The third framework is the one most people skip, because most people want to talk about what to do before they address the decision that makes doing possible. Here it is. Re-engagement is not a feeling. It's not an inspiration. It's not the moment when everything finally aligns and motivation arrives and you feel ready. If you are waiting to feel ready, you'll wait forever. Because the system that created the decay will never generate the motivation to end it. That is not how this works. Re-engagement is a decision made before the conditions are right. Made in the absence of momentum. Made with full awareness that it will be uncomfortable and the choice to do it anyway. Every time I have been rebuilt, boot camp, returning from deployment, fighting cancer, leaving the Navy, the aftermath of losing Gwen, the turn did not begin when I felt ready. It began when I decided that staying the same was no longer acceptable. Not when I felt strong, when I decided. That decision is available to every man in this video right now. Not tomorrow, not Monday, right now. The decision does not require a program. It does not require a coach. It does not require anything external. It requires a man to look at the gap between who he is and who he is capable of being, and decide clearly and without excuses that the gap is no longer acceptable. Everything after that decision is execution, and execution can be built. But the decision has to come first, and the decision is entirely yours. You will not rebuild on motivation. You will not rebuild on insight. You will rebuild on the day you decide, for real, not for performance, that you are done decaying. I want to be honest with you about something before I close. I did not build Legion leadership because I have this figured out. I built it because I almost didn't catch my own decay. And I was a man with 23 years of training designed specifically to prevent it. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. And I built it because the men who rebuilt, who came back from drift, who reclaimed their marriages and their standards and their edge, did not do it through inspiration or information. They did it because someone refused to let them stay comfortable. Someone held them to the standard. Someone walked next to them through the pressure and did not let them quit. That is what Legion exists to be. Not a program, a forge. If you want to know more about what that looks like, the link is in the description. There's no pressure, no pitch. If you're ready, you'll know. But regardless of whether you ever take the step through that door, I want you to leave this video with one thing. The decay is not who you are. It is a condition you have been operating in, and conditions can be changed. The question is whether you are willing to do what changing them actually requires. I think you are. I think that is why you've watched this far. Before you go, I want to ask you one thing. In the comments right now, one word. That's all I want. One word that describes where you are after watching this. Not a paragraph, not an explanation. One word. Decaying, rebuilding, stuck, awake, done, drifting. Whatever it is, put it there. It tells me who is in this room, and it tells you something too. If this video gave you something real, subscribe. New video Wednesday and Saturday every week. No filler, no motivation content, no tips for optimizing your mornings. Just the things most people in this space don't have the nerve to say. Our next video, the Navy broke me in 8 weeks, and I have never been more grateful for anything in my life. That's up next. I'll show you exactly why. Stay in the fight.